Welcome to FailUp Africa, the podcast where we talk about all things failure. That's right. This is a podcast and this is a space where we share stories and experiences dealing with and learning from failure.
Each episode we sit down with a new guest, an African trailblazer who unmasks what it really means to fail and what we can do about it.
And that's everything from schooling to academics to careers to starting a business and even personal relationships. This is a space where we can get vulnerable, but with a dose of humor.
Join us in getting real about failure. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. How are you guys doing? Hope you guys are having a lovely week, a lovely month, wherever it is that you're listening to this from. You are tuned in to FailUp Africa, the podcast. It has been such a whirlwind of a year. Hope you guys enjoyed our previous episode with Jerry and Shadrach talking about how our communities are shaping our view and perception about failure. Now, I know we got some interactions on our social media. People were asking, where is Elma? Where is the co-host? I thought we had two hosts. You know, we like Omina, but we're missing some of the energy from the other side. So for those who are worried and concerned, I am here with good news today. Drum roll. Ta-da-da-da-da-da. Elma is back on the podcast.
Bow, 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 bow. Thank you so much, Omina. It is so great to be back at the FailUp Africa, the podcast. I definitely missed you guys so much, but I'm back. I did lose my voice, which is my greatest weapon, but you held down the fort, Omina, and I can't wait to wrap up the year with you.
I was empathizing very heavily with you, Elma, because I know just how much losing my voice usually throws me off, because hey, these are the tools that we use on a day-to-day. But it's definitely good to have you back. Hope you had the nice combination of ginger and lemon tea.
You
that
know
always
the basics.
seems to do it.
You know the basics.
One thing about this podcast, Elma, we've grown to realize that we're raised in the same exact African households, you and I.
Literally. We're related, Omina, and we don't even know it. And speaking about being related, I think at this time of year, it's the moment when families get together and everyone reflects on the year that has gone by, looking back at what we did, if we didn't do enough, were we too productive? Did we procrastinate? So we're going to use a little bit of time just to pause, to assess, to realize what we've done and to make changes before we go into our new year. So what has this year been about for you, Omina? If you could sum that up for me. What has 2022 been like?
Yo, it has been a whirlwind. I mean, just looking at the podcast itself, we started working on this thing in July, August, right? And that was now entering now Q4, the end of Q3, getting into Q4. The last quarter of the year has been very moderate. It's been a calm down. The climax was the summer, most definitely. But I think this year has been, if I could describe it in one word, it's been a rush, right? Where there's school going on, right? And everything that is in the academic world that we live in as students. And then there's family life going on and there's your social life going on. And for the both of us, I bet, and for a number of our listeners, there's also your side projects, your careers. Most people our age are freelancers. There's that going on as well.
Yeah.
And in the midst of it all, I think one thing that has really stood out has been the resilience over this entire period. Through the ups, the downs, the successes, the failures, that has sort of been what this year has been about. How about you, Elma? Summarize 2022 for us.
I definitely do believe that we're probably living the same lives, Amina. We don't even know it. 2022 has definitely been a rush. It's been a whirlwind. It's had its great ups. It's had its shaky downs. All in all, it's been a fulfilling year. You know, when you finish the year and you go back and you say, I did everything that I possibly could. And even though some things didn't go how I planned, I'm happy with what I put in. And I'm okay. I'm okay with how 2022 ended, which is, I can't say the same for 2020 and 2021. This year, I got to travel, which I know, Omina, is something that you just do all the time. But for
That's
some of
so
us,
nice.
for some of us, it's exciting.
Let the listeners know that you're back in Cameroon now.
I am back in Cameroon recording from the motherland.
Yeah.
Come on, come on.
How's that been?
The only African country to beat Brazil in the World Cup. Just had to put that out there. But it's been great. It's been great being
I
home.
knew you were gonna bring up the World Cup.
Look, it's the only thing. It's what we have
I
to
knew
give.
it.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So, like I said, I've traveled. I've had ups and downs. Maybe my gymming goals didn't get to where they were supposed to, but my corporate company goals definitely got there. And with this podcast as well, it's been an exciting journey. And so, my question to you then, Omina, would be, what's that one thing that didn't go as you expected it to? That one failure moment for you this year, if it's just one. For me, it was more than one. Yee.
That's a bit crazy. Before I even get into that, I was gonna give you your flowers. I was waiting to do this on the episode. I don't know how much the listeners know about the work that you do outside of the podcast, but I saw that you were nominated and awarded top 10 outstanding young persons in South Africa
That's
under
right.
the
And in the
Junior
world,
Chamber
in the world,
International.
in the
So
world.
shout out to you.
Thank you so
Oh
much.
my
Thank you so
goodness.
much. Oh my goodness.
Is there a
Wow.
limit
I
to your
didn't expect
greatness?
this. I'm blushing.
That's the thing. Yeah, so shout out to you and the amazing work that you're doing. And like one thing I really appreciate about this podcast is that 360 view that we bring in when it comes to the work that we do, when it comes to the work that we lead every day as Africans, as global citizens. And just onto your question of what's that failure that really stood out this year. I'm gonna take us back to how we ended the first episode. Last time it was just the both of us on the podcast. I remember, we introduced the whole concept of what this podcast was about and touched on a couple of the professional and career highlights of like how we define our own successes and failures. I remember we ended the conversation on how when it comes to failure, there's an aspect of it that is existent in our relationships with our families, our relationships with our friends, with the people closest to us. And I think one of the low points this year that I consider it a failure for a number of reasons. Seeing how some of my relationships sort of fell through over the course of the summer, like going back home from school and just that summer period, because I always see myself as someone who does well managing my interactions with people, and keeping who I need to keep close, and just managing that social sphere of things. But for the first time, there are instances where I didn't show up for some people around me, whether it's friends, whether it's some friends, whether it's some family members. It's been a lot of that. The most interesting part has been just I'm learning a lot of new lessons from my failures. The lessons that we learn from when we don't get that award, or when that pitch competition doesn't go as we had thought, or it's been a awful week at work. I can't wait for the weekend. When failure starts shifting in different spheres is when you understand that all of these lessons that you draw depending on which type of failure that you're encountering in your life. I don't know if you resonate with any of this, Elma, just going into what are some of the spheres for you this year that would feature in those failures that stand out.
No, definitely, Omina. I resonate with every single word. In fact, as you mentioned pitch competition towards the end, I was just thinking about a recent competition that I was in with my company, Elevate Africa. We train public speakers all over the African continent, and we did a brilliant pitch, one of those that gets you a standing ovation, and it was one of those given, oh, you guys are definitely walking away with that cash prize. And you walk away and you feel that confidence, and you're not even walking anymore, you're floating, only to find out that the person who presents after you presents the most compelling story about how this is their grandmother's dying wish for them to carry on with this company. And even you, it tugs at your heartstrings, and you're like, yeah, no, there's no ways
Damn.
you can't compete with that. You know what I mean? And so we didn't get that pitch
Come on,
competition.
yeah.
And I remember speaking to my mom about it, and she's like, "So how do you feel about failing?" And I'm like, "We didn't fail. It just wasn't, we just have like that. I didn't fail." So coming to terms with failure and accepting that it's happened has been something that's really hard for me, because I'll be like, no, I didn't really fail. It just wasn't meant to happen. But that means you failed. And that's okay. And like you were speaking about relationships, I think you and I are overachievers, and there's a lot of young people who can relate to
Yeah.
that. Being an overachiever means you sacrifice relationships. It's very sad, but it's the truth. And with you and I, we have side hustles as well. There's the main job, there's school, and then there's a couple of side hustles in between.
Damn.
And that means sacrificing things like birthday parties, sacrificing, Sunday lunches and things like that. And one of the biggest things that I had put in my, New Year's resolution, which is what everyone does, my 2023 will be like this. My 2022 was supposed to be renewed and built friendships. And I have struggled with that and just spending time with my friends. Not even spending times, prioritizing times with my friends, because I'm the type that if we, for example, have lunch tomorrow and a business deal comes up, it sucks. But unfortunately, I pick business, and it's something that needs to have a balance. So I have failed in terms of prioritizing my friends. And I know that they're going to listen to this, and I love you guys to bits. And everyone else who's listening, go and tell your friends that you also love them. And we're going to try. We'll try our best to build on those relationships. But another thing that I wanted to mention, Omina, as we speak about relationships,
Yeah.
as we speak about the importance of friendships, how was your mental health for 2022? Because it was a lot.
That's such a good question, Elma. When you were talking, I was laughing because there's so many parallels when it comes to your perspective on something as simple as just priorities and what comes first, what comes second. And I think there's this lens that I sort of view some of the decisions that I make, where it's not a conversation of this is a good opportunity, this is a bad one, or this is a good priority and this isn't that good. It's a thing of making decisions from a lens of good and better, better and best. And it's nothing rigid. It's, there are days when one thing takes priority over the other, and there are days when something else would need more of our attention. And the secret is in how well you're able to discern what needs to come first, right? With taking responsibility for the work that you need to do, with taking accountability for some of the things that are in your locus of control. And that's definitely something that I resonate with, that I picked from what you were saying. And the mental health aspect is tied into a lot of that, because we give off this energy and pour so much of ourselves into our work every single day, into our school, we pour a lot of ourselves into who we need to be every day, where we need to show up, and the spaces that we need to show up, and the people that we need to show up for. And so I was just listening to a podcast before we began this recording. It's called Uninterrupted the Shop, right? And the conversation was, is there a limit to your greatness? And so they have a bunch of these very successful people around this barber shop type of setting, big names, artists, actors. This specific one had two actors, an artist, and some people in the corporate space in entertainment, though. And the conversation was around, when it comes to the life of an actor, the everyday work life of an actor, and when it comes to the everyday work life of a performing artist, on tour or whatever, it comes down to how they manage themselves in all of these different situations that they need to show up for. And so you might walk into a set as an actor and you're not feeling like you're in the best shape. One of the actors said she had to go to work the day that her, I think, stepmom passed away, or stepdad, a close family member passed away. And you're definitely not doing well mentally. You're going through this very human experience that is loss and that is grief, but you have to show up and do your set work for that day. If you're a performing artist, people have paid for your tickets at the show that you're going to perform for. You can't say, oh, I'm not feeling so well and that's why I can't perform. Well, you can, but it will be doing a disservice to someone else at the other end of the table. And so that is that discernment that has really shaped how I approach my mental health, taking into account what I also need to do for myself to be okay. And so it's those instances where today I'll prioritize my mental health or this specific space that I need to be in today, and I won't go for that party, or I won't do that podcast recording, or I won't show up to class that day. That's also a very important aspect of this. Also goes into academics, and I think I'm one of those people who encourages people to apply the same type of self-regulation when it comes to all of these different spheres which are heavily built by society's expectations. Oh, I cannot miss school. You can miss a class if you need to take care of yourself that day. And that's sort of what has really stood out for me over the course of this year, Elma.
Now that's really great advice, Amina, and it's advice that people can relate to as well. I mean, you speak about school, you speak about relationships, you speak about being able to make it to gigs as well. And I guess my advice would be find your community that supports you. I am very individualistic, right? I'm one of those independent people who I live alone, I do my things alone, I work till midnight alone. And so if I face problems, I tend to want to face them alone as well. It almost feels like a burden telling people about my problems. I always tell myself, okay, so after I've told them, then what? Are they going to help me solve it? Because now I've just laid my burden on you, and that doesn't feel fair. But this year, I started to do different things. I'm not a talker, and this is anyone who's listening and can relate to this. I'm not a big talker. I'm not a let's sit down so I can tell you my problems. I struggle with that. Which is funny because I mean I host podcasts and I'm a public speaker. But when it comes to talking about feelings, not so much. So what I started doing was I would invite my friends over and we would have a games night, or I would do a whole bunch of laundry and I'd go pick up a friend of mine and come through and we'd fold clothes together. And it's moments like that. I mean, to think about that this year was so long and yet I remember tiny moments of folding laundry with friends. Things like that really just gave me a sense of calm. So regardless of how independent you are, regardless of how much of a standalone person you are, even if you're not a talker,
Yeah.
find ways to bring your community on board to help you. And when they don't even think they're helping, by just being there, they're helping. So don't face these challenges alone. That's my encouragement and
Yeah.
that's my advice to everyone.
I have a question for you, Elma.
Go right ahead.
When you made this shift and you started approaching this talking thing a bit different, was it as a facet of you realizing this yourself? Was like this is self-awareness, self-introspection. You realized for one reason or another that you need to do better in this, and then now took it up, or was it you mentioned community? Was it someone in your community who told you or pointed this out? I'm just very curious to understand the
So,
thought process behind that behavior shift, because
yeah.
it's a behavior shift at the end of the day. Yeah.
So it was a self-assessment and trials. By trials, I mean I actually went and tried to do the talking thing and it wasn't working. In fact, it made me feel very uneasy afterwards. I was like, okay, this poor person is going home with,
Mm,
all of my issues
mm,
and that doesn't feel right. So that was me trying. And then a self-assessment was, look, what do I like doing? I love hosting people at my place. I love having little dinners. I love having little games days. So let's do what makes me happy. And, let's see what that does. And then, that worked. Again, there's no single recipe for everyone. And that's something that works with skincare, hair care, and everything else in life. There's not a specific recipe that says, if you want help, you need to step one, do this, step two, do that. You need to find what works for you. And you need to, find what suits your environment. And I think if you don't mind, I mean, I have a question for you as well. Makes me think about it. We are here at the FailUp Africa, the podcast, and a big question I think for both of us would be, how did we fail up this year? So, Omina, I'm going to put you on spot. How did you fail up this year?
I really like the concept of failing up because there's this English term. Is that an oxymoron? What does oxymoron mean? Is it like that thing that it's like the opposite? It sounds opposite.
Yeah, it's like two words that are
Let
completely
me Google
opposite,
it.
but they stand next to each other.
There we go. Yes. We are recording this podcast on our laptops with Wi Fi. So, oxymoron means a figure of speech in which apparently contradictory terms appear in conjunction. So, for example, unfaithful. Our faith unfaithfully kept him falsely true. Yeah, that is We have to cite Oxford Dictionary on that one. But yeah, so the term fail up sounds like an oxymoron, right? As per the stereotypes that we're trying to unravel on this podcast, right? Of failing is considered as you're lesser than you were, right? So oh, I failed. Oh, society tells you you're lesser than you were. That's bad, right? And so one thing I feel like we've done on the podcast is take that crystal ball, Christmas season, that crystal ball you have that has snow and Santa's in it, right? We've taken that and we've shaken it up. And so what's happening right now with the whole concept of failing up is rethinking or reimagining the whole concept. And so my fail up moment this year, or instances in which that shift has been made through this unlearning that we've had to go through, not just on the podcast, but also with the conversations that we pick up outside of this podcast. I know FailUp Africa, we had the virtual experience, and that was an instance where, people coming together to have conversations about this. And this coming into Q4 was the moment for me when things got a bit tricky, right? Because after the entire summer of traveling, working, doing events, doing podcasts, I came back to the island, and I run a company on the island called Omian Project, which is an events brand. And so the expectation for myself, for my team, and for our main audiences here on the island was that we'll come back and we'll do events, right? We'll come plug back in. People had a crazy summer. All of this growth that has happened over the summer, we're marinating, in that oven that is failures, successes, learning this and this, meeting new people, gaining new skills. When we came back to the island, the expectation was that we'd plug back in. People have been seeing what we're doing. We'd get opportunities, we'd get collaborations, we'd partner with people. And that is just the complete opposite of what actually happened. And so what I didn't realize when I came into Q4 with all of these expectations is that the process that I've gone through between September and now has been a different type of learning curve, right? And so with that learning curve has come, the expectation is that you'll spend more time doing events. No, you're going to spend more time learning something else about yourself. You're going to spend more time building a different skill. And this past 4 months has been the podcast that I run, aside from being a host here. It's been doubling down on my academics, getting into, my second to last semester before I finish school next year. It's been a completely different learning curve. And I think what we observe when it comes to some of these fail up moments, people like us, Elma, us high achievers, and people in the audience who can relate to that. And even if you're not a high achiever, when you go through some of these fail up experiences, you think you know the lesson you're learning. You think you know the product or the person you're going to be at the end of this process because, you've gone through this before, or, I failed at this thing last time.
Yeah.
I know what mindset I need to fail better this time. There's an aspect to that, but also the world will bring you something completely new. And that is the learning curve. It's a curve, right? There are highs, there are lows, the days when you feel like, hey, take me now, And so that for me has been that expectation of coming back to the island. Events are going to be great. We haven't done a single event. But the past 4 months has been that fail moment, right? Was, things not going my way, things not going our way as a team in terms of events. But the upside of it has been, I'm ending the year having learned so much about myself in the past 4 months and what I'm really good at and also what I'm not good at. That has sort of been what that is. How's it been like for you?
My fail up, how did I fail up this year? I failed a couple times. How did I fail up? Learning and accepting failure. I recently did a motivational talk to a group of young students here in Cameroon, and I was telling them that when failure comes knocking on the door, instead of running away from it, open the door, say hello, have a conversation, and overcome failure. Because
Love that.
Right? It's time that we stop running away from it and time that we look at what we can learn from it. Because like I always say, Your failure brings you closer to your success because now you know what not to do. So, failing up this year in general has just been me accepting when failure has happened, being content with failure, being okay with the idea of failure instead of just trying to avoid it like the plague. But as we talk about Fail Up, let's talk about Fail Up Africa, the podcast, the milestones that we have encountered this year. Omina, let the people know what we have done.
It's been a very, very eventful year. And I think massive shout out to you, our listeners, and everyone that has been a part of this amazing journey with us here. From you guys listening to all of our podcast episodes. We had our first ever newsletter as a podcast, and you guys were super, super excited and really give us incredible feedback on that and engagement. To just something as simple as being vulnerable here on the podcast for ourselves, for our guests, and Jerry, Shadrach, Fred Swanica as well. That was crazy. And you and I, Alma, because we come onto this podcast every single instance to interact with our own failures. As much as
Yeah.
we're having these conversations with different people, every conversation is a mirror back into our lives of how are we relating with the content before
like
even the
that.
listeners get a whiff of all the smoke that goes on this podcast. Right, you, myself, and the team has already internalized, and we've already been affected by whatever learning points, whatever advice was dished out, and our own interpretation of each of these, and that has been a very, very incredible experience. And we've seen this from our listeners as well on our social media pages. The engagement on our Instagram over the past couple of months has been incredible. Comment sections are always buzzing. We're currently at 1,417 followers. I'm sure if you guys are listening to this and you haven't followed us yet, we need this number to increase. We'll give you guys the milestones for you to take it up a notch, right? Because you guys are the biggest drivers of why we hop on this podcast every single time. And we christen this experience with the art of failing up virtual experience, right? And that's so incredible engagement with you guys, meeting our team members and getting to engage with each other. That's a different aspect of things that we don't see in most podcasts, right? Do the listeners know one another? Is there a way that this platform is bringing together the community outside of the 30, 45 minutes that we engage with you guys here on this podcast? And so those have been some of the most incredible milestones that we've had this year. Yeah.
Yeah. Incredible indeed, Omina. And I just want to thank the team in the background for doing such an incredible job bringing this together. We are a podcast hosted by the youth for the youth, and this is really for you. We're getting vulnerable about failure. We're learning about failure together. Omina and I are two young Africans, just like you guys listening. I'm from Cameroon and South Africa. Omina is a global citizen, so I don't need to tell you where he's from. And we are here learning together. But we want to hear from you, right? Not just your messages. We actually want to hear your voices. So please send us a voice note via Instagram and let us know what lessons you have learned this year from engaging with us. What have you learned? What can you tell us? How has your failure been? What have you learned from failure? And what advice can you give others about failure and your experiences with it? So we want to hear from you. Send us a voice note via Instagram. Follow us, then send us a voice note. As you know, FailUp Africa is the gift that keeps on giving. The FailUp Africa podcast, rather, is the gift that keeps on giving. And so if you follow us, there are many, many, many competitions and gifts in store for you. Now, Omina, it is my favorite time of this podcast. Drum roll. Dooby-doo-doo-doo-doo-doom. Dooby-doom-doom-doom. That's CC. That's African drum roll. And we're going to talk about rapid fire questions. Just a little bit of information. What are rapid fire questions all about? Why are you knowing like you didn't know this was coming?
Me, I knew you guys had this planned out for me.
Local noisemaker. Don't be shocked. Don't be shocked. Right. So this is a moment where co-hosts are going to ask each other rapid fire questions. And we're going to get about 2 seconds just to answer the question. So you don't think about it. You just give the answer as it comes to you. Are you ready, Omina? Are you ready for this?
Born ready. What you talking
Always. See, I don't doubt you. I don't doubt you at all. Okay. In fact, before we get into this, actually, thank you for being an amazing host. You've been great. And for sharing your stories and all of that.
Are we breaking up?
No,
Are we?
no, we're not.
What was that for?
I needed a moment. I
don't do
needed a
that.
moment to acknowledge you.
No.
Okay, let's go. Let's leave
Okay.
it. I'm done now.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so your
Don't play
first
games, yeah.
question. Your first question is, what habit are you leaving in 2022 because it no longer serves you?
Ati, how long did I have to answer?
You're supposed to already be answering, Omina.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I'm buying
One
time.
habit that no longer serves you. What are you leaving behind? You are saying no.
Mindset. Let me go for mindset.
Mm-hmm.
A mindset of scarcity.
Hey.
Because we're living in an abundant
Come on
age, an
now.
abundant time in our lives
Go
as young
deeper. Go
Africans.
deeper. Wow,
And
wow,
we're
wow.
leaving behind mindsets of scarcity.
Scarcity, goodbye. There's no way. Next question for you, Omina. What book had the biggest impact on you this year?
Ooh. Have you guys read Who Moved My Cheese?
I've heard about it.
You need to do more than just hear about it. You need to read it. by Spence Johnson, yeah. It's a very simple book. It's the most simple book I've ever read. It really shifts your mindset. If I'm to make that reference, yeah.
You see,
Who
the
moved
thing
my cheese?
with podcast hosts like Omina is you ask him for rapid fire questions and he wants to give you deep analysis because he's just a deep guy, right?
I did a
That's
rapid
why
analysis.
we appreciate you. And the last one for today, let's leave it at 3 questions. Love or friendship? Ooh la la. Vous, Je t'aime or I don't know friendship in French. Oh.
There is no friendship without love. That is my answer.
Wow. You heard it here
Mic
first.
drop.
You heard
Boom.
it here first.
It's over.
Great answers, Amina. All right, let's warm up. I'm ready for my turn. Let's
Now,
do this.
the shoe is on the other hand. Huh?
Hey.
What do they say? The shoe is on the other?
It's
foot.
obviously not on the
shoe is
other hand. It can't be the hand.
See, this is how we're failing up. We're embodying the FailUp message.
The
This
shoe
is
is
the
on the
ethos
other hand.
of why we're.
I'm going to
shoe is on
post
the
that.
other hand.
I'm tweeting
Yeah?
that. I'm tweeting it.
That's a tweet. The post-production team is going to do a poster for that one. Quote the local noisemaker on that one. But as we keep the rapid fire going, Elma, I have some questions for you. Are you ready?
Nope. Yes. Always.
Let's go. Born ready, never gotta get ready. Stay ready, never gotta get ready. All right, let's go. What is the cringiest thing you did as a teenager?
Oh my gosh, as a teenager, everything I did was cringy. Where do I start?
Period.
First of all, I used to do dance battles. You see me? I used to have dance battles. I was that kid, right? I challenge any boy. Challenge any boy. Let's get down. Hip hop.
We can't leave that hanging.
Like, you know, one of those like prompt songs.
Hanging.
You know, like back with Step Up, right? Step Up 1, 2, 3, what all of those.
Oh.
I was that kid who would randomly just say, "That's it. I'm whipping out my moves. I'm gonna challenge you to a dance battle." I look back now.
Line
and I'm
people
like,
up.
What were you doing? What were you thinking?
Who wants to challenge me? That's cool. That's not cringe though. That's cool.
No, but it is. Do you know what I was doing?
Do you have videos? Is there footage we can show our listeners?
There isn't.
This is valuable FailUp content right here.
There shouldn't be.
This is social media engagement.
I've deleted all evidence.
We're sleeping
it's gone.
on.
It never happened.
We'll find a way of bringing up your dance battles in the next virtual experience, Alma. So my next question is who. No, let's do a who. I want you to give someone a shout out today. Who are you most grateful for this year?
Oh, I am most grateful. First, I have to say my family, because if I don't say them, they are West Africans. They won't let me forget it. Oh, Elma, you went on a podcast.
Listen to this podcast.
Listen, you went to a podcast. You did not say thank you to your family. But then definitely next in line, very close second is my friends. Shout out to my friends for being amazing this year and for carrying me through. Look, it's great to have friends who celebrate your wins as much as you and just want to see the best for you. So I am blessed with the best. Hashtag quotes me. Thank you.
Wow. I love that. That's beautiful. Quick one. This is not the last question, but it's a segue question. It's not a segue. It's related. when you collect your awards, because I travel the world, you collect awards every month. So that's sort of that's the conclusion in this co-host
That's it.
relationship
That's
that we have.
really it.
So when you collect your awards, like, do you give like a speech, and who do you usually shout out
Oh,
on your
I
I
want
just
to
got my
thank
award speech?
I want to thank the Almighty for making it all possible. Right? Do you know what I mean? Because I'm West African. So I
Uh-huh.
always shout out to God.
And then the family.
And then the family. And then the friends.
then
But
the
yeah,
family,
I
that's
normally
so
have
funny.
to do thank you speeches. That's true.
No, I love that. I love that. So on the same breath, the last question is your glass half full or half empty?
You see this question? This question always bothers me, right?
Let's get deep.
Because I'm
Let's
all
get
about
deep,
conservation of the world. So my thing is the glass is always just enough. Do you know what I mean? Because whether half full or half empty, it's just enough for whoever's going to drink it. And then you can always get more. I don't understand why we must choose if it's empty or it's full. It's just enough. That's my thing. Let's save the earth.
You're
Let's save the
sneaky,
planet.
Alma.
Let's not waste water.
You're very
Power to
you're very
power
sneaky.
to. Yes, thank you.
You're a very sneaky co-host.
I learned that
You're-
from the best.
You're doing
That's
loopholes
you.
here on my question. It's fine. I'll get you next time. So we still have more episodes coming up.
So the person who
You
said
wait and
there's
see.
no friendship without love. Let's not even go there.
No, there's a logical explanation to my
course.
answer.
Of course. I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it.
Wrap it up for us, Elma. Let's let
do
our
it.
listeners go.
Awesome stuff. So, guys, once again, we would love to hear from you what lessons you've learned this year that will help you in 2023. Don't forget to send us those voice notes via our Instagram page and let us know some people you want to hear from on this podcast. Remember that this podcast is for you. We are just hosts. So if there's someone that you have a burning desire to listen to and you don't have their contacts, guess what? We will find their contacts by fire, by force. We will contact them on your behalf and we will try to
Exactly.
get them on board. If you want to find out more
We
about
have the power
FailUp
of
Africa,
Google.
check our website, failupafrica.com, and follow us on our Instagram page at FailUpAfrica. Final words from you, Omina?
It's been real. I've been your local noisemaker, international MC, voice of the party here in the Paradise Island of Mauritius. And it's been a wonderful year here with you guys. Take care.
That's right. And it's your girl, Alma Akab, also international MC. See, he's just putting out his credentials like that. Let me also put my own. International MC.
I have to put my passport
award-winning
details.
speaker.
You
Business
have
owner,
to put your
CEO.
passport.
See, podcast host analysis. It's been
elevating Africa. Actually, guys,
one day at a time.
check out the work that Elma is involved in. I was gonna plug guys to your content, Elma. Check out the work that Elma is involved in because she's doing some amazing work. She's getting awards here, and you guys are sleeping on your co-host. So shout out once again.
Thank you so
Elma.
much, guys. Stay safe, enjoy your holiday season, and we will see you next year.